Hello everyone and welcome back. We are now in the final phase of our day and it's my great pleasure to introduce the final person who's going to come and is going to speak to us today. That is Peter Logan, who's sitting here with me. And Peter is the subject of our latest exhibition at the gallery. You can see his work around Messums West and there's an extraordinary array throughout the long gallery. And we're also joined here by his magnificent piece, Square Dance, which we're going to watch a performance of after Peter has said a few words. But just to introduce Peter, he's, sorry, I have to step back because of the sound system. He is an incredible sculptor of these kinetic works that are around the gallery. Peter trained latterly at the Slade, out of which he came with a love of movement and of dance, and it was through that love of the dance and of performance that his sculptures derived, and he brought that language into physical form to create pieces which perform with incredible feeling. And so Peter will do a much better job at introducing his work and of talking about this piece which we're about to see. So I'll hand over to you. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Wilfred.
Yeah.
That's for you. Can you hear me? Am I being heard? Well, movement is discovered me, or I discovered movement as a little boy. I saw Alexander Calder's mobiles moving. And when you're not so tall and you're looking kind of lower at them, it's like having an aquarium of fish that are actually moving above you and they're moving across the floor. And I've looked at those works since I saw them first in Stockholm as a little boy. And they don't do that at all. Now I'm grown up taller, and they're much more central, and they're moving on the central thing. But when I saw them, I got this thing of them traveling. And I kind of, that stayed with me. And I was a normal art student, painting, sculpture, working from the model. I worked with, at Messums they have the estate of Brian Taylor. Brian was my teacher for sculpture. And I stood next to him with my clay and thing. And I would experiment with wax, warm wax. And as you've been hearing about Helen Chadwick's early work, what I was doing when I was, I mean, I'm older than she is, but was looking and understanding what I saw in the model and then modeling it with my hands, just touch. And that was those were the figurative sculptures. Through a miracle of this, that, and the other, and they were discovered and cast in bronze and in a great private collection now. So actually, they were saved, which was because I had a fire in 1979, which destroyed everything I did up until August the 17th, 1979, wipeout. So currently, I've been born in 1943, and I've got my brain still. So I'm going back, looking at those lost works. Johnny Messum comes to my studio and he suggests having a show here when I hadn't had a show in a gallery since 1968. So, I mean, I've always been in the fields, you know. I'm a real outsider artist, working out there with the sun and the wind and the water and whatever. I'll work away. And he, Johnny, gave me ambition, which to make them big. So I'm getting on with it. And they were called experiments towards mechanical ballet. And from the Slade, I began. They wangled me a £50 grant by the American Friends of the Slade, and they had to come to my studio, and I was sort of putting wires together. I made a performance to a score by Brian Hodgson of the Radiophonic Workshop, BBC, because I wanted machine-made sound to go with my machine-made performances of the sculpture. And in many ways, that's one of the strong elements that are going through continually through my work. My work is very much to do with evolving. I work in what you call series. So I would make one sculpture, and then out of it I'd see, oh, it could be better. Then luckily people bought or commissioned them, and then of course you have to make it better than the prototype one that I made. So that sort of serial development of what I'm doing. And then there's always another dimension to the sculpture which we don't really talk about, but one of the things, like say the nails, which is performing in front of me right now, was that was an exploration into imagery with kineticism. I'd already done, I was on top of the movement, but I wondered if it was possible to have movement and a visual recognizable things. And so I did pencils because of the way they came off the machine lathe, and then later I did nails as well. And then they get commissioned, but I initiate what I want to do, and I always made them big, straight away. This is quite fiddly and complicated to make something that size. To make it reach the roof, dead easy. Would you show the first slide? No, that's a pencil. Here. There's a nail later. We're at Stansted, which had just been refurbished this week by me. Anyway, I want the one in the sea. That one. So that was the North Sea Dances. I got asked by the wind turbine people, of all people, to make a work in Zeeland on the sea defences. And in Holland, you know, the sea defences are precious to the people. Consequently, I had 1.5 million people come to see my show. But could I get the British Council to come? You know, nothing. But it kind of took off there. Well, this is that. This comes later. I made that straight off, and then we planted it on. It's marking the tide, so the tide will go backwards and forwards, it reveal the bottom a bit, and then doesn't come in much more. It's a shallow tide out there. But it was, so we've done that. Yeah.
Perhaps you could introduce the square.
Right. Square dance I did 1968 in Bolswood, and hand switching, and it was to be part of my experiments towards mechanical ballet. So I did it in New Art Centre in Sloane Street, and it was a small place, but the tubes which were in the exhibition there at the end, the straws, they always floor to ceiling, different kinds of, but they work very well with the motion of the square dance. And Brian did the sound score for me, and then Brian Montgomery of the building exhibition, which used to be in Olympia, he came, said, "I'd like to have this in my exhibition, building exhibition, but I need it bigger and in metal." See? Yes, sir. So I'll go away and do it, and then me and an actor called Peter Davies, we sat round the square dance, so they flooded the bottom of it, so it was kind of reflective in black water, and it was bigger than this, and by a foot everywhere. And Brian, of course, did the score, and for 2 weeks we sat hand switching this. Well, nowadays you wouldn't be allowed to have young people doing, those sort of. We were 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, because he gave parties around it, people coming. But the choreography that's in that was developed through the least number of times you have to flick the switch and get the interesting things happening. And so we sat and did that. And then one more exhibition with it hand switching, but then came the Arts Council, and they wanted to put it quickly into an exhibition which I wasn't selected for at the Hayward, called Kinetics, and that they would automate it, and they did. And it was very good, except it kept breaking down. And the reason it was breaking down was because the big electric motors got hot, and the gears got loose, and it would just run through the micro switch out the other side and stop. Well, it got nowhere to go. There was no signal, so everyone said, "Oh, it's broken down." All it had done is switched itself off. However, it then went to given to Tate Gallery. It presented to Tate Gallery, and I knew that was a problem, and I did speak up and say, it's got this problem. No, it's got done. So what's happened with is that I've been working with Tate to develop what you're seeing here in the way of motors. You'll notice that you see all these black lines covering cables. There are no cables. It's weightless. It's got counterbalance in it, which makes it weightless. And it's electronically programmed with modern Arduinos and a Raspberry. Those are the two types of computer doing different functions, but that gives a very, very regular thing on the performance of it. And they're quite light and they can be moved around. They have to be accurately set on the floor plan. This was done with laser. We take it that seriously that they're in the right position, because the programming, we don't have to do this program. This one, because it's the one the one at the Tate takes 1 minute, 20 seconds to do a revolution. This one is smaller by that much always, and it does 1 minute rotation. So you get an 8-minute program here. With the Tate one, you get. But what I'm telling you about now is the controversy of trying to explain to the curatorial team at Tate and the conservationists that actually the sculpture is the movement performance. That is the form, and it is not the machinery. Every time I made a version of the square dance, the bottom looked different. For coming here, anyway, they got a freeze on money at the Tate, even though it's ridiculous in this case because it's totally financed, but there's a horror, going round everyone in the art thing about there not being any money and they can't do this, they can't do that. And so there was a freeze. Well, as you know, I've said it before, 1943, you want to get on with things, you don't want to be sitting around waiting. I'd already been working with them for 4 years. So what I did was I just decided to make this. This slightly smaller version to prove everything that I said, because we'd made a prototype and it was all, yes, please. I'd converted them to the understanding of the thing. That was good, but that was a big work to get there. So this square dance here, I've not concealed anything to do with the machinery, which you would if it was going into a public place, merely because children, oh, you're off, with Brian's score. There you go. Success. That's all right. I won't say too much more. Oh, you can ask me anything. before.
What's really compelling to me is that the end, the green end, is on the same axis, is on the axis of the motor. So it's frozen. It's great.
That's it, yeah. That was really the sculpture, yeah. It's a spatial ballet with we called this movement that it's going through now the Mantis. It's quite a convention in dance for the dancers. When they're doing their parts, they have nicknames for various parts of big ballets that they're doing. So this Mantis isn't an aspiration, it's just our way of identifying it and being able to say in conversation when one's making the choreographic composition to identify this section.
So to what extent are you taking an organic, you talk about lotuses, about choreography, about fish swimming in the original Calder mobile.
That's an old man's observation
Are you,
of a young
so you're
boy.
not going from the organic to the mechanical, or are you? How deliberately are you trying to model the organic through the mechanical process?
Not at all.
Okay.
And then I found I was a natural.
Okay.
That when I turned this on, almost at midnight in my studio, one arm, I just knew. And then when I come to make other sculptures, they have that quality.
Okay.
And so that takes care of itself. I don't have to worry about that. I'm trying to think about the wonderful Russian constructivists, Rodchenko, Ilitsk, and Tatlin, and then the Bauhaus with Schlemmer, and their theories on mechanical ballet, and I also enjoyed very much the work of Anthony Caro, very simple, which was contemporary. He was way ahead of me because he's a different generation. But this one we called the Do-Si-Do, just as its nickname.
Do you know how many movements the dance is made up of, in the sense of how many sort of positions it's constructed?
Of course, it's all written down. Yeah. I write the choreography down, where you have to, and the timing and so on. But I decided that we would stick with the original choreography that will go with the tape piece. We don't have to use this choreography really, but there's quite a few there's quite a few opportunities to refine this with this wonderful microtechnology who can refine all sorts of things relative to the choreography, which are not, but my God, we were so lucky to get the thing working. It's a was a big challenge.
It's a barn dance now.
There you are. And what a beautiful barn it is.
Yes, yes.
Marvellous.
Now I can remember some of those shapes from barn dancing. It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
You know, because you're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved those. I liked barn dancing.
Yes.
When I was younger, Matt came for it.
We had it at our wedding.
Did you? My family, they love the Scottish reels, the reeling. They do that a lot. That's it, Gabrielle. You can turn it off. Turn off the sound.
Thank you so much, Peter, for that. I'm sorry, it was slightly abruptly interrupted. Slightly abruptly interrupted, but thank you for your insights on the piece, and I hope everyone enjoyed the performance. And in fact, I think we'll run it again after the symposium so people can gather around and see it again if they'd like. But thank you all for coming today, and everyone who's joined online as well. We really appreciate you being here and listening to the talks. I hope you enjoyed them, hope you learnt something and feel in some way inspired. So yes, thank you and goodbye.